Good morning and welcome to the DAC Monthly Webcast. It's June 8th, 2023. I'm Jennifer Stafford, the Director in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support, and we welcome you today to today's broadcast. If you're watching in person, we're so glad that you could be here with us. If you're watching the recording late tonight or when you're at home, we appreciate your time and attention and your participation today. We've got some really good topics for you this morning. It's been a while since we've been here with you. We canceled our May DAC webcast because of testing, and we want to bring you some updates and some highlights from the spring 2023 test administration. We also want to update you about current activities that are happening in the state. There's many teachers who you all have volunteered and nominated to be part of the standards validation process. We're also going to give you some reminders about the case screen and provide you some updates on that, as well as some accountability standard setting and some activities that are happening upcoming. So we've got some really good topics to bring you up to date on many of the things that are happening around the Office of Assessment and Accountability. As always, if you have questions, please email dacinfo@education.ky.gov. I'm joined today with an incredible crew of members from our division. We have Jenny Larkins, we have Kristen Rosenberry, as well as Lisa Jett. So we appreciate everyone's attention. And again, Ben Riley, as always, is monitoring that DAC email mailbox. So please send your questions if you have any, and we'll get to all of those and update you as to where we are. Let's start out with some highlights around testing for the spring 2023 administration. It went well. The testing around the ACT went very well after we got over some initial technology issues for the system, as well as the Kentucky Summative Assessment, the alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment. We had earlier in the school year, we had the access and alternate access. Due to you and your leadership as district assessment coordinators, the testing experience went very smooth from our perspective. Not to say we didn't have particular issues in districts. It wasn't perfect, which nothing is going to be, but due to your leadership, your willingness to put in extra time and effort and remain calm in somewhat stressful situations, it provides that great experience for our students. So thank you to you, as well as your awesome building assessment coordinators. We've got such good building assessment coordinators across the state, and their dedication shows through, and we appreciate that very much. Looking at some of the spring highlights from testing, we did have over a million, 1.5 million tests, and we call those individual tests. It's not individual students because one student takes multiple tests. And we also include the survey in that number. So we had a good experience with our online system. The TestNav system from Pearson works quite well. And you know that we use that for both ACT testing as well as the Kentucky Summative Assessments. So that system, that platform is working. It supports all of the administration of students on at one time. And that's exemplified in the fact that we had almost 230,000 students tested in one day. That was the peak of our testing. That one day count was on May 8th. And that the week of May 8th, that was the biggest week of testing that we saw the counts really climb during that time. There were peaks of activity around that week. before and after, there were peaks of activity, but the week of May 8th was the biggest week for testing. So if you were testing that week, you were a part of that, and it demonstrates the capacity for online testing that we have here in the Commonwealth, as well as our vendor to be able to support that amount. And we're not the only state that is testing in the spring. So they support many other states, and it goes quite well. But again, it doesn't go perfectly. There were some issues with our internet service providers that were down through various situations that the internet service was interrupted for various reasons beyond the school's control. And our working with our district assessment coordinators, were able to put a pause on testing, come back the next day, or in most cases the next day, if not 2 days later, then and restart testing, and was able to complete it in plenty of time with even though the interruption. We did have at least one issue that we had what's called an attack, a DDoS attack, and that's when a system is overrun by internet traffic, and the servers at the school were full, and that caused quite some consternation within the school district. So we appreciate the leadership there, and the capacity to, again, provide leadership and the direction to be able to mitigate that circumstance. So overall, it went well, but again, due to your leadership, it went very smoothly. At this point, I'm going to look to Jenny Larkins and Kristen, I'm sorry, about the standards validation, and turn it over to you, Kristen.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. We just want to talk a little bit about the standards validation process that is currently happening this week. And so the work continues. Jennifer brought us some good highlights that have happened through the testing process, but we're working to constantly develop and improve things. And so this week, volunteers from across the state that Jennifer mentioned you had signed up and nominated and volunteered are working to validate the cut scores that were set last year. And the purpose of those meetings is to provide the recommendations for retaining or adjusting the cut scores. The panelists involved will authenticate current cut scores or provide a meaningful content-based rationale for recommending a change to a cut score. And those recommendations will inform those of us at KDE and our decisions regarding the final cut scores for reporting student performance on the Kentucky Summative Assessments in mathematics, reading, writing, and social studies. And so we just want to say thank you to those of you that are participating, and those of you that nominated and suggested people to participate. We appreciate the work that is happening this week, helping us with those tasks. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Jett.
Thanks, Kristen. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to take a few moments of your time and provide you with a few K-Screen updates and reminders. The 2023-2024 K-Screen staff file is currently in the process of being updated by district assessment coordinators. DACs can access a spreadsheet from the Kentucky Department of Education Secure Web Applications website under the student data detail, provided in either an Excel or PDF format. The file name will be SD24 _ district code _ K _ screen _ users _ the name of your district, followed by an 8-digit number. When opening the spreadsheet, it will be pre-populated with current information from the previous screening window. Once the file has been reviewed and/or revised, please use the link provided on the slide to submit the K-Screen staff file. Staff files are due June 16th. Curriculum Associates in the Kentucky Department of Education will be presenting an in-person Train the Trainers session July 20th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time at the Sauer Building in Frankfurt. This training will take place at the Sauer Building. Participants are being asked to bring the materials listed on the slide to assist in the in-person training. Due to this being an in-person training, there is a limit to the number of participants who can attend. Once the limit of 30 participants is reached, the registration link will close. If you would like to attend the in-person training in July, please use the K-Screen Train the Trainers in-person training registration form link located on this slide. The final Train the Trainer session will be a virtual event on August 8th and August 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. This training has been divided into 2 afternoon sessions to accommodate Kentucky districts as the new school year begins. Participants will be asked to complete an hour of pre-work before the first training date. Registration information will be provided through Monday DAC emails and K-Screen updates. Before I turn it over to Jenny, Ben, are there any questions?
I'm refreshing that right now. Give me just a second. We don't have any new questions at this time. If we do, we'll follow up at the end.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be with you today to talk about one of our upcoming activities in the Office of Assessment and Accountability, the 2023 Accountability Standard Setting. You know, whenever we have new assessments or a new accountability system, or even when we add new components to the accountability system, we have to convene a standard setting. Now, a standard setting is just the process that we use to do a couple of things. There's kind of like a 2-task process where first, the standard setting committee will set descriptions of the performance levels. So if we use an example from last year, if we look at the indicator status level of high for graduation rate, the description of that, or what it means to have a high status level in graduation rate, is that most students in the school graduate within 5 years. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part is that the committee sets cut scores for that correlate with those performance levels. So using that same example, if we look at graduation rate, to receive a status level of high for that indicator, the school had to have a graduation rate score between, someone is moving that and I'm not allowed to take control. I don't see a way to take control, Ben, so hold on just a moment. So that back to the graduation rate though, the school would have to have a score between 95 and 97.9. So again, we have the descriptor and then we have the cut score. So you've heard us before talk a lot about the 2020 Senate Bill 158 that pretty much gave us a new accountability system. But because of COVID and some other factors, we weren't actually able to implement that system until last school year, the 21-22 school year. So when we implemented that, of course, we had to have a standard setting. And so if you look at the slide here, we set accountability cut scores. Let me see if I can move that back myself. There you go. Thank you. In 2022 for the partial implementation of the system. So we only had 1 year of data last year, so we couldn't implement the full system. We could only provide information on status or current year performance for each indicator. So the standard setting panel wrote the performance level descriptors. I mentioned an example of one of those a minute ago, where they described what each performance level meant for every label of status for each indicator, very low through very high. And then they set the cut scores for that. Then also they wrote performance level descriptors for the overall performance rating that aggregates all the available indicators into an overall index that is reported by a color. So those cut scores and were set for that also. But now that we have 2 years of data, we can introduce change into the system. And so that's the reason why we have to have another standard setting this year. So if we look at the next slide, thank you. It shows what the standard setting panel is going to have to do this year. And you can see that there's a lot more involved this year by adding that into it, the change component. They will still do the same thing where they will describe what it means to meet each performance level. Those are the PLDs, or performance level descriptors. And then you'll notice here that for the status performance of each indicator, the cut scores were set last year for that. It's quite possible that those will remain. We will review them now that we have 2 years of data, but we may not see any changes to the cut scores for status for this year. It may be what we had last year. But then the panel will need to set cut scores for the change component of the indicator. We will also be developing performance level descriptors for that. We didn't have those last year, so that will be new. And then they will set the cut scores for what score does it take for a school to have a change of maintained or decline significantly, and so on. And then we will also have to combine status and change this year and use a 5x5 colored table that we'll use when we combine status and change to determine their indicator performance rating, which is reported as a color. So you might remember that those 5x5 colored tables we've shared many times before, those color placements on the table were established quite some time ago by the Kentucky Board of Education. So the panel won't make any changes to where the colors fall on the table, but for each indicator, they will set what cut score it will take for a combined status and change, say it may be a medium in the current year and a maintained from the prior year, and where those two intersect would be a yellow. Well, in that specific cell, what score range does the school have to fit into that cell? So they will be set for that. And then finally, we will have to reestablish cut scores for the overall performance rating that aggregates all the indicators, because change wasn't a component in that in the past. So last year, 2022, the standard setting took place over a period of 2 days in September. But on reflecting on the process and then knowing how much more complexity is going to be introduced into the system this year, the facilitators and KDE decided that it would be best to break that work into 2 different sessions. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to have the first session, the first part of the process, where the committee will develop the indicator performance level descriptors and the overall school performance level descriptors. So no cut scores will be set at this time. We won't have all the available data that we need to do that, but we can go ahead and develop those descriptions of what does it mean to be in a certain status level. So then in September, that committee will reconvene, and at that time we will have the data, and so they will set the cut scores then for all of the performance ratings. Well, once that is finished on September 15th, the committee will then provide their recommendations for the cut scores they've set to the KDE, and then also to LSAC, the local superintendent advisory council, who are required to approve those cut scores. And then once they're approved, we will apply them to all of the accountability calculations and go through all those processes that will eventually lead into the release of the public data. So just a note here that you see at the bottom of the slide, the 2 meetings, the June and September session, will not be virtual meetings. They will not be live streamed, but they will be open meetings that will be held in the Sauer Building in Frankfurt on the 5th floor in the state boardroom. And of course, we will provide information on the outcome of all that for you if you're not able to view or come in for that. And then I thought finally that I'd just give you a little bit about what we know so far about the committee that is going to participate in this. There will be between 25 and 30 panelists. We have most of the panelists have already confirmed that they will be able to attend both sessions. We just have a couple of outstanding invitations that we're trying to work through. But we'll provide that list to you as soon as we have a completed list, either through media release or some way. You'll be able to see that list eventually of who's participating. We have as a strong history of including a broad group of stakeholders in all of our activities, and you'll see here that it's no different for the standard setting. We have people coming in from all across Kentucky and that are serving in a variety of different roles. We, of course, have superintendents, teachers, principals, people from those the K groups. We have a student. Of course, we have several of our own district assessment coordinators that will be participating. And then parent representatives and others. And again, when we provide that list, we will list also the participants' roles on there, so you can see that diverse panel. And then I think one of the things that we're most excited about is that all but a handful of the participants who were involved on the 2022 standard setting committee are going to return to participate in 23. So we're just really thankful that we're going to have all that experience coming back, and it will give us a good head start on an understanding of what the process is and what we're doing there. So that wraps up, I guess, my summary of that. I hope I didn't go too quickly. Before I turn it back over to Jennifer to wrap up, Ben, do we have any questions on that?
We do not have any on the accountability topic.
So Ben,
At this
before we get into the other questions, I wanted to follow up on something that Jenny said on the accountability system standard setting. And Jenny, thank you so much. That's a lot of information about a system, our plans, and we're so appreciative of your leadership on developing and managing that. One of the things of Kentucky that we do differently than other states is that we do bring in people. As you mentioned, we have a strong history in that. Not a lot of states involve their educators and community members, particularly students, in this type of activity. Most states generally, they set the cut scores and those performance level descriptors at the State Department. So the other states, their departments of education are generally the ones that make the decisions about what it means to be at the different performance levels. In Kentucky, we value all educators and our community participants and those voices that we bring to the table, so that we get a wider perspective and a wider range of voices having input on those standards and those descriptors. And because our schools and districts have stake in that and therefore should have voices to that process. Jenny, anything else you would say about the standard setting?
I don't think so. I think that was a great addition, Jennifer. A great reminder.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Ben, any questions? Because I didn't want to turn from the standard setting to anything else. Do you have any questions?
I do. We got one question going back to K-Screen.
Okay.
And that question is for
Lisa.
Come on down.
It's that season.
Yeah. All right. So Lisa, this one's for you. If all of my screeners are experienced, do they need to participate in the Train the Trainer event?
Gotcha. So all of your trainers will need to view the refresh webcast that has been placed on our Common Kindergarten Entry Screener webpage. That's for your district trainers. All of your proctors for the screener will also need to have a yearly refresh training that's provided by the district trainers.
All right. Well, that's it. That's all the questions we have for now. With that, I'm going to kick it back to Jennifer for any final words.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I realized I was on mute there. And we'll just give it just a second here to see if there are any other questions uh, and see if there are any updates that others. Also, one of the things that there's been some activities here across the department that is we've had a lot going on this week. Our commissioner, Rhonda Sims, and I were invited over to the interim joint education committee, along with Dr. Jim Flynn and Dr. Lou Young, to talk about the past, the present, and the future of assessment and accountability. So those that presentation to the interim joint committee went quite well. If you have an opportunity to view that, that they had some really good questions about assessment and accountability. So if you get a chance to view the interim joint education committee meeting, that was on Tuesday, June 6th. Also, the Kentucky Board of Education has been meeting the past 2 days. The afternoon of the 6th and then yesterday the 7th. And they talked a lot, and their focus was on a portrait of a learner. There were several good discussions that district assessment coordinators may be interested in. And there was a call to action from our state board members. So I would encourage you, if you have the time over the summer, to really listen, follow the conversation that the Board of Education is having and the conversations that the General Assembly is having, because it will impact our work moving forward. So I would just encourage you to stay involved in the conversation, because your district leadership may be looking to you for information on those topics. Ben, have you had any other questions come in?
Yes, we got one more, and it's a real short one. Are there any updates to ACT?
Oh, thank you. That's a good one, and that's a really hot topic right now. I'm going to assume that question is about senior retakes in the fall. We've had Shara has, and myself have had questions about whether or not the seniors are going to have opportunities to retake the ACT in the fall as they did in the spring. And although we are not ready to make any announcements on that there is some movement happening right now. So the department is in conversation with both ACT and the governor's office to see if that can't be a reality. So again, we don't have any ink on contracts yet, but we will have more information on that soon. So please look for that in either DAC monthly email or our next DAC webcast, which is scheduled for July 13th. So it'll be after the 4th of July holiday. We hope that each of you all have a safe holiday and an enjoyable summer. We all know that you deserve some time off and to regenerate and rejuvenate, connect with your family, friends, and loved ones. So with that, I will ask Ben one more time, any other questions that you've had?
We do not have any more questions in DAC info today. I guess our DACs are taking a much deserved vacation or time off right now, and I can't say I'd blame them. So
that's right. And we appreciate your time and attention, whether you're watching live or at another time. So take care, be safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you back here in July.